repercussions, consequences around the world. And we can speak now to Musalia Mudavadi, Kenya's Foreign Affairs Minister, among many other portfolios, who joins us on the line to Nairobi. Welcome to the programme. What is your reaction then to Donald Trump's comeback?
Well, thank you to have me. It's phenomenal, one would say that. In politics, it's rare that you have a moment where there's this kind of resurgence. So we wish President Donald Trump the very best as he assumes his high office. And for Kenya, we have had a strong partnership with the United States since 1964. And we will continue on that path. We also look forward to analyzing and working closely with the president on policies that affect Africa. Aspects like the AGOA, the African Growth Opportunities Act, are critical to the African continent. We also have...
But Kenya's just going it alone, isn't it? Wanting a direct deal with the US?
Now Kenya, yes, I was just coming to that. Apart from the AGOA, which is continental, Kenya is also negotiating a strategic trade and investment partnership with the United States. So we hope that we shall be able to accelerate this conversation with the new regime.
We know that Donald Trump likes a good deal. Are you worried that the terms and conditions for any sort of trade deal might have got a little bit harder?
No, I don't think so. I think he negotiates hard, and I believe we have also been meticulous as Kenya in the negotiation of this particular partnership. So I believe it's an opportunity for both of us to move forward and strengthen our ties.
Donald Trump is also talking about putting up tariffs in lots of areas. I mean, that could have a big impact on Kenyan economy, could it not?
Well, we can only say that it depends on where the tariffs will hit and to what extent does it affect products that emerge from Africa. But I believe with the appropriate negotiations, and I'm sure Donald Trump would also like to see a vibrant Africa, he will be able to also steer his team in a situation where we have a win-win for both sides.
You say he's keen on a vibrant Africa. Famously, in his first administration, he was reported to have made some pretty derogatory comments about African countries in general. Is that not something that concerns you?
It does concern us, but I think in the process, what is important is that we want to have meaningful engagement. And that's why I believe that...
I'm the immediate security minister for our country after you appointed me 2 years ago. And during those 2 years, I have had to ask myself whether the highest interest is the public interest or there is a higher interest called the national interest. Because the public itself could hurt the national interest. And the Constitution talks about the national interest in two places, at the beginning and also in the chapter on national security. Other than the parameters and principles that the courts are helping us to understand about public interest, are there other higher values, primordial, existential, fundamental principles which are crucial to the existence of Kenya? Because the public can be mobilized or can mobilize itself to do the wrong things that threaten the existence of the state. And therefore, that is the next frontier of jurisprudence I would invite us to start thinking about, and the Supreme Court can help us in that regard.
Thanks for creating time for the fireside, them over politics, policy, and polity. This week we've had 3 significant effects that have got a big bearing in the lives of the people of Kenya. The first one is we had a US presidential election where President Trump made a win that has shocked the entire world. Then Mr. Raila Odinga has launched his candidature, and there was a visit to Kenya by a Chinese official of rank. So, Mr. Owidi,
yes,
as a politician of rank, what did you make of the US presidential elections, and what can Kenya learn from the elections?
Let me tell you, and whatever I learned will have been what Kenya should learn. Human beings are inherently selfish people. And this is what many leaders forget. They go telling people how to change society, how to make this and that for everybody. People want to hear how they will benefit from your presidency. Kamala Harris was having an upper hand at one point in time, but she kept on basing her campaigns on women's rights and on such things. Reproductive health and all that. But Trump kept on talking about changing the economy for the benefit of every individual American. Trump kept on talking about chasing away those people who have come to share into the wealth of the Americans. Trump kept on talking about making America great again. Even people who did not know that America was once very great, they imagined what it would look like. They didn't like Trump, but they voted for Trump because they were voting for themselves.
Yeah, there was a very interesting dynamic.
Yes.
Because when you look at the US scorecard,
yes,
inflation is very competitive.
Yes.
They're saying that it's at the lowest level. Interest rates at the lowest level. So when you look at the economic numbers, they point to a successful Biden-Harris presidency. But Trump says, you're saying that you've been your management of the economy has been a success, but kuna pesa mfukoni.
You know, there's something which you must know. The ordinary voter, US, Kenya, or wherever it is, have no clear understanding of those things you're talking about, inflation and all that.
And interest rates.
They want to know, can I afford my lifestyle? Can I afford food? Can I afford clothing? Can I travel easily? And even if the economy is doing very, very well, if the narrative that is doing badly is the one that has been sold vigorously, people will believe the economy is bad, and whoever is saying is going to make it better will be believed. These people you see, whatever they see in the media, that is what they believe. Whatever they hear often, that is what they believe. And that happens throughout the world. Sell your narrative vigorously and make sure it is a selfish one to the electorate and to yourself. And you will beat the best candidate early in the morning. Many people make their voting through emotions, not logic. It is just emotional thing. It is just our mind. And they get it. So I think Kamala, also the other problem which she had, I think she came into the race a bit too early to configure.
Too early or too late?
Too late, sorry. Mm-hmm. You know, at one point in time, she was like, this is Biden's issue. It's not mine. But when it turned out to be hers, and she has to start thinking and assemble a team to help her think, I think it was a bit too late to deal with the Trump rhetoric. So generally, even back here at home, a person who kept on saying, our people, my people, our people, became popular so fast because people are inherently selfish. They are capitalists. They want one of their own. In fact, if you tell them, I will kill the rest of the world and we remain here with all their wealth, they will vote for you. They will.
Now, based on your insights on the US elections, shouldn't President Ruto be a worried man? Because incumbents, almost all incumbents all over the world who are presenting themselves for re-election are getting a beating.
I think we are not going to use superstition. We are going
Why is the superstition?
that because incumbents are remaining, so going to no. In fact, for him, he's learning their mistakes. See, now I'm telling you Kamala's mistakes. That man from Leonard, her mistakes.
Kamala.
Now the president is listening to me now, and he now knows what mistakes that were made. So I can hear sometimes, even here when people are campaigning, they keep on telling the electorate, this is what we are going to do, this is what we have done, this is what so-and-so would not be able to do. People do not want to listen to that. Even if they listen, it will not appeal to their emotions the way something of their own, something that makes them better than others, something that makes their community better than another community. That is what they want to hear. That is why you see, we go to voting and Uhuru runs against Raila. Kikuyu to the last man vote Uhuru and the Luo to the last man vote Raila. Is it based on anything they believe in? No, it is just selfishness.
You know, I got into trouble when I said the average Kenyan voter is emotional and irrational, that also they are victims of the Stockholm syndrome, that they are falling in love with their captors. So even if the captor is all wrong on all metrics, they will still elect him to public office. Obviously, I'm not going to mention names.
All the captor needs to do is ensure that the Kenyan doesn't know they are captives. That is all they need to do.
Yeah. So now, Khafafa, from what Owidi has indicated, then there's no time for policy communication. That you've come up with a nice manifesto, you've worked on the interest rates, you've worked on the inflation. If the perception is that people have no money in their pockets, then that scorecard counts for nothing. The numbers, you know, like Kamala presented a very solid report card, very solid. In fact, all economists in the US indicated that our proposals, our manifesto, our policies were very solid. Some of them are Nobel Prize winners. They looked at our policies, they said, this is what we need. And when they looked at the one for Trump, they said, this one may not add value. But still she got a beating. So does it mean that for people in campaign communications, just get an emotional message, get an irrational message, go to the top of Mount Kenya, shout yourself hoarse, and you win an election?
First of all, I'll disagree with you that Kamala was the face of a successful economy. I don't think she was. You've talked about inflation as having been contained, about interest rates being low in America. That's not true. That's actually the exact opposite. And this is the reason. You know, we had COVID.
What is the interest rate? What is the percentage in the US comparing it to Kenya?
I don't, of course, US will always be lower in terms of interest rates compared to Kenya. We are a third world country, and naturally our interest rates are much higher, say, than developed countries.
Okay, but then how do the rates compare, say, with Germany and China, their peers? How do they compare with their peers?
They were higher. But you see, US is the leader of the world. Most currencies are pegged to the US dollar. And where I'm coming, in fact, that's where I'm coming to. I want to say that even our currency, our Kenyan currency, our central bank rate kept adjusting depending on the FDR rate, which is the rate that the central bank, the federal bank in the US gives. Kept adjusting. As the Feds raised their interest rates, we also raised ours. Our CBR rate also went up to a high of 13%, basically basically being a mirror of what was happening in the US. And the reason why the US interest rate went up is because during COVID, there were stimulus packages given to Americans. Money was printed, money was given to every American to cushion them from the effects of COVID. So there was excess liquidity in the American market that wasn't being matched in terms of the value of goods and services. So following that, there's been a mopping up. And the way you mop up excess liquidity in the market is to raise interest rates. So interest rates in America have been high. Inflation has been high as a result of that quantitative easing, pouring in money into market to stimulate it. So inflation has been high. So interest rates have been raised to control that inflation, and that measure itself has been very unpopular with the American electorate. So you ask about these things.
But as late as this week, they reduced their interest rates.
Yes, they've been reducing. I mean, basically trying to fit you in the policy with their monetary tightening. There's been those monetary tightening for a while, but you cannot tighten your monetary policy forever. because it affects people. It means people lose money in their pockets. Life becomes difficult for people. So you have to ease at some point. And to me, that easing came a little bit late. It should have come much earlier in the year. Yeah, it came too late to the election period to be of much use to Kamala. So if you ask me what my takeaway is from this American election, I'll go back to the words of one of Clinton's advisors who said, it's the economy. And I won't add the adjective that he used.
Yeah, James Carville. Just said the economy is stupid.
The economy, yeah, it's the economy. I just leave it at that for the benefit of our viewers. It's the economy. So the economy
but
was...
stupid is not a bad word to use.
Economy was one of... out of sensitivity. It's one of the Achilles heels of Kamala Harris. That was one. The other is Joe Biden's centerpiece. Joe Biden's policy. When Joe Biden came in, he made the centerpiece of his foreign policy LGBTQ rights. And he went around dictating these things to people.
What does that mean in normal English?
Joe Biden decided to focus more on rights of homosexuals and the gays and lesbians and transgenders. He made them now the cornerstone of his both of his foreign policy and of his home policy. And America is a value-driven society. So that whole drive, that whole push towards LGBTQ rights to the world and to the American people did not sit in well with a lot of people. And when Kamala Harris took over from Joe Biden as a presidential candidate for the Conservatives, she decided also to carry on with whatever Joe Biden had started, but she focused on reproduction rights for women, which is a euphemism for abortions and that sort of thing. Again, those are things that did not sit in well with the bulk of the electorate in America.
But when you talk about a value-driven society, the gentleman who has just won the elections to be the president-elect, Trump, has been going through the courts left, right, and center. He's accused of being a convicted felon. So even some people, when they were being interviewed, they said we are voting for his ideas, not the personality. Is there not that a contradiction to what you're speaking about, the value-driven?
There's that feeling that a lot of these prosecutions against Donald Trump were politically instigated, and Trump himself has said it time and again. You know, there's been an inordinate focus on him. There's been a push to paint him out as a bad boy, you know, of American politics, and people are intelligent and they can see through some things.
So what those states were doing, the state cases and federal matters, all of them were being manipulated. By Democrats.
Well, he was allowed to run for president, wasn't he? He would have been in jail. Otherwise, he became the presidential candidate and he won eventually. Mm. If they were as serious as alleged, then he would have been in jail.
But one of the judges said that he's not going to prefer a sentence till after the elections. It appears that if you were in the US, you would be a Republican. As you think about that, Fanya, Mambo, welcome. What did you make of the US elections? What were your highlights? I've caught him unawares.
I think first and foremost, the US election only makes to Kenyans when it relates to Kenya. Otherwise, their inflation there, how they are living, whether they are buying unga ya ugali there for more money or less, Kenyans don't care.
Are you sure?
I can tell you, it's how it relates to us as Kenyans. Does it affect diaspora remittances, for example?
Of course it does.
So that's what I'm saying now. So what is going on within the borders of the US really sometimes doesn't really concern us as Kenyans. What concerns us is how it affects us as Kenyans. One is the election of Trump going to improve on diaspora remittances to this country, or is it going to make it harder? Is the election of Trump going to make it easier for Kenyans to go to the United States, or is it going to make it harder for them to go to the United States? What the US election means for us Kenyans is President Ruto happy with the election of Trump, or is he unhappy? If he's unhappy, we are very happy as Kenyans. If he's happy, then we are very sad as Kenyans.
You're unhappy.
Yes, so we go the side that he's not there. So
if President Ruto is happy with the US elections, you're unhappy.
We automatically become unhappy. We decide we have become unhappy.
It's a default setting.
Yeah, it's a default setting. If he goes left, we have to go right. If he goes right, we have to go left. Yeah, no. It is wrong. But the fact that he was already, he had already shown his side and he had already declared and he was working with the Democrats. And now the Republicans have taken it. We are happy. I can tell you as Fanya Mambo, I was rooting for Trump and I made it very clear on several TV stations. And the reason I was rooting for him is that every time Republicans have been in office, they don't care about Africa. They don't disturb us. They are not interested in making our lives miserable and coming to micromanage what is going on in Africa. That's not their business. The Democrats are the ones who think they own the world. They want to know what Chinese are eating, why they are eating this. And let them eat monkeys if they want to eat monkeys, and they let Africans be Africans. So we are happy as Kenyans that Trump won. And again, we are not going to peg our lives on the life of the US. We still have to figure out our own life. And one of the things I've always said, Africa is one place that has got very many currencies that become useless immediately you leave the border. I left for here with 1,000 shillings and went into Tanzania. In Arusha, it's money. But after Arusha, ukifika na huko Singida, nobody even wants to see that money. Now you feel you have a lot of paper on you that it can help you in very many parts. It's like if you have the Tanzanian shilling in Meru, if you have the Tanzanian shilling in Namanga, thereabout, yes. There are people who relate because they cross.
There's no Forex Bureau in Meru that accepts a Tanzanian shilling?
It will be a problem. It will be a problem because who is the next person who will go into Meru looking for a Tanzanian currency? In fact, Tanzanian currency, you just carry Kenya money and change inside Tanzania, not here. You see, the dollar is one currency you can change in Nairobi. It's one currency if you went to Kisumu and walked into a bank or a Forex Bureau, you can change.
Owidi will be happy if you give him $1.
Yes, you see, exactly. But if I give you the Zambian money, hata sijui kama inaitwa kwacha ama ilibadilika, now you have a headache. So I think it's a high time, like the East African region, we started thinking, what are we doing with all this paper? Zimechorwa zingine giraffe, zingine sijui zimechorwa nani amekalia nini. We have to mop up all this. And
how does that relate to Trump's election?
It relates to that election because one of the things now you're talking about inflation and all is because every other time we have to keep thinking of the dollar. Can you imagine if I am traveling to Uganda now, I am safer with dollars than with Uganda shillings? Because once I'm done there, I can still change dollars more happily and come back to the country. And every time you are making those changes, you lose a lot of money. So I have always said that, can you imagine, Nigeria is closer to us than the US, but you'd rather carry the US dollar than the Nigerian money when you are going there.
Than the Naira.
Yes, the Naira, whatever that is. So that is why I'm saying, in as much as sometimes we think that the US elections and the US economy is a problem, we are the problem. Because if we fix some of these monetary policies we have, if we start thinking of a currency that kind of unites a huge region, if like now SADC had their currency, East Africa had their currency, we would be talking less about the dollar. Because now the dollar becomes when you are leaving your whole region. But right now, if I'm going to even Zambia, I need to change to dollars. It doesn't make sense. And so this election for me is good. I am happy that the candidate that Ruto didn't want has won. And I'm hoping that 2027 he loses. We are praying every day. And by the way, our young people have started doing something nice. You've seen the black memes.
No, but before we go there, are you able to present any evidence that confirms that President Ruto's candidate won or his candidate lost?
No. You remember who called him to the White House?
But that was a state visit.
It was a state visit. Yeah. But invited by who? A state visit is orchestrated by the city.
It was invited by the US president.
Yes, the US president. Who was a Democrat. Oh, yeah. Do you think if it was Trump, he would have invited him?
No, that one, it's
a thorough no.
No, the variables are in the air. We have no idea. But are you not happy? I suspect you are not. But as a Kenyan, President Trump, or rather President Ruto, is among the very first presidents that President-elect Trump had a conversation with. That doesn't mean nothing to you?
Who? Trump.
President Ruto is among the first few African, actually globe presidents across the world who've had a conversation with President Trump.
A conversation that you had? or that you were told was there?
I mean, he posted it on his social
We
media.
have come to now, honestly, let's not even go there. Because most of the times we always ask ourselves, first, when we hear something, especially coming from Kenya Kwanza administration, is it true? And is it going to happen?
So you're suggesting President Ruto lied to Kenyans? That is that a phone conversation with President-elect Trump?
The only question I would ask every other Kenyan is, has he lied before? About other very fundamental things? If the answer is yes.
You know, you're committing a fallacy.
No, I'm asking, has he lied before about other things?
About phone
and if he
conversations.
has, what would be different about this situation?
Owidi, as President Ruto lied before.
Kenyatta is the guy.
This narrative that the president is lying was coined by his deranged deputy. You know what you do in politics? If I want to beat you...
Owidi, deranged is also a very heavy and parliamentary term.
Let me tell you what the guy did. He wanted to sell himself to Kenyans as a truthful man. And at the back wanted to sell the president to Kenyans as a liar. You know, the last time I was here, I told you something about campaign. I told you when we are campaigning, there is pep talk, there are suggestions, there are promises, there are covenants, there is the manifesto. All those are there when you are campaigning. They are all meant to win votes. And that everybody does. But you are not going to use some of those suggestions, some of that pep talk to pin somebody down that he was a liar. If there is something in his manifesto that has not been done, if there is a covenant he made with the people that has not been fulfilled, then you will say he is a liar. But some of these very things that President William Ruto even said during the campaigns, they were said also by his campaign team, including his former deputy. So if they lied together. But nobody is lying. Sometimes I tell you, my son, I will buy for you a phone when you... But then before I buy the phone, I discover I have lost my job. I am not a liar. Things have changed badly. Some of the things the president promised this country could not be done because the people he expected to cooperate with him towards doing this thing literally rebelled and started doing a counterproductive, a counteraction to his. Don't you see now, the narrative that was all over is now gone since Kindiki was sworn in. All that dirty language that you used against the president, all the lies. A few people like Fanya Mambo are the only ones still left, still thinking that the president is a liar because they have not known that their boss has changed direction. He has discovered he was sponsoring all this, but it is futile. Now he cannot continue. And let me tell you, in another 3 or 4 months, you will hear of none. People will be quiet, waiting to see what happens. Just like the Adani thing. They have gone quiet. Adani is a very respectable and reputable company. If you go to India, everybody wants to work for Adani. But here in Kenya, you have been told that this is a criminal organization. It cannot be a criminal organization investing like that and having done so many contracts throughout the world. It is not possible. Do you know today, even some of the most respected companies in this country, KCB, Safaricom, Barclays, you will find there are problems with one person or the other, and they're all over internet. So if you choose to make one dirty, you only pick out those bad ones and leave the other good things. Just pick them out and put them on the table, and you will paint. You remember I had some people saying, oh, even the international community was saying this, even Trump said this. Let me tell you, the international community picks news from the local media and they take it away. When you have compromised the local media, when the people giving news to the local media are people who have been compromised to paint the president as untrustworthy, that is what the international community will pick up. So, from where I sit, President Ruto is not a liar and has never been a liar. And if he is one, then everybody in this country is a liar. Because at one time or the another, we have said things that we have not done at the time we said we would do it because of one reason or the other. Even when I was coming here, I had promised that I would be here 30 minutes earlier. I came 15 minutes early. So things do change. Yeah. I'm sure even Fanya Mambo was to be here in time, but he came a little late.
So you're saying he's a liar? So Fanya Mambo is a liar?
No, he's not a liar.
Yeah,
I'm saying he's not a liar because it is circumstances that has made the things not happen the way he promised. But he had no intention of telling anybody a lie.
Yeah, but before you come in, Fanya Mambo has raised a very fundamental issue about the regional economic communities, like the East African community, West Africa, all this, and they need to have a currency. In the context of Africa Union. As a policy expert, is that a pipe dream, or in fact the African presidents are willing to fast track all these harmonization processes so that at some stage you'll have an African currency?
Actually, it's a work in progress. Even with regard to the East Africa community, we have these movements towards a single currency. I think there are hurdles that have to be overcome. There are steps that have been taken. We are a little behind in terms of movement towards a single East African currency, but it's a work in progress. I think it's work that is being done by the central banks of the government of the East Africa community.
But for you to get that single currency, it means that Kenya as a nation has to cede its monetary policy?
All the countries have to cede
their monetary policy. Is that something that the presidents are willing to do in Africa?
Yes, they have to do it. They have to do it because regional cooperation is the only way to grow. Regional markets are the only way to grow. You cannot grow when you have individual markets alone. You can't go it alone, so to speak. If you look at the EU, that's the same trajectory that the EU took in collapsing all their borders and coming up with a single bank called the European Central Bank. That's the same thing when you look at the US. US is a federation of states, I think 50 or so states, and they all have the Federal Reserve Bank running their monetary policy. So it's the same thing that we are headed towards. For us, I think the first thing to do is to work with the regions, like the East Africa community. SADC will work with the thing, and then eventually coalesce and have one Africa currency. Eventually. That's part of Agenda 63. Yeah, so it's a work in progress at the moment. But I still want to add on to what Owidi has said with regard to calling the president a liar. I think the mistake that many Kenyans do, and which Americans have also done, is to believe the hype of the media. Media can be partisan. And sometimes when it takes a partisan angle targeted towards somebody, it goes all out to paint that person as a liar or a cheat or a murderer, whatever you want to name it. And they will even run polls to show that this person is unpopular. And we've seen, we saw run up to the 2022 elections, how media began this creation to create this boogeyman called a thief, and a liar and a cheat, and a dishonest person and a loser running to the 2022 elections. But that was just media hype. It never worked. We saw American media also painting Trump in very unflattering light. But reality on the ground is different. People are intelligent. As President Ruto once said, wajinga waliisha Kenya. I think the same applies to the states.
So which media are you talking about legacy media or social media?
Legacy media, social media, just across the board. There has been a concerted effort. When you look at headlines, how many headlines are quick to paint the president as a liar? We've seen leading media personalities in an interview with the president disrespectfully asking him when he will stop lying to Kenyans. Yeah, that's me. Those are media practitioners from legacy media, disrespectful with a narrative, with a mindset, and foisting it onto Kenyans.
Now,
it is preposterous.
Fanya Mambo.
Don't allow these people to bring their brief. Brief inatoka hapa.
Hiyo brief yake imetoka wapi?
Say something about common currency. Let me tell you. When someone comes on TV and tells you and gives you a date and says ikifika tarehe moja June gas itakuwa inatoka shilingi 300, and then it gets there and it doesn't come, and he was saying to him nalirudia kama mara 4. In fact, those women were really clapping. Mpaka leo tujaona hiyo gas. I mean, there are so many promises. There are so many things. I mean, a head of state comes and tells you, We all know when he graduated from the university. And you know, HELB was, when it was started, 1995. Then there's someone who graduated 1989 and he's telling you I benefited from HELB and I started paying when I became member of parliament. And that person, when he was member of parliament, was already giving Harambes 200,000 because of Youth for Kanu 92. My friend, Kenyans are clever. Kenyans are wise. You mention HELB, they Google. You mention this, they look up. And Kenyans will tell you to your face, you are lying.
But talking about HELB, wasn't there a successor to HELB? Was there not an organization which morphed and got transformed to become HELB?
Let me tell you.
I think
Kenyans, we are not here to look for context. Kenyans don't want context. Kenyans don't want to be lied to.
What do they want?
Whatever context you are coming in from, tell them the truth. Tell Kenyans the truth. I mean, there are so many things. You've just seen the speech that was given the other day about some housing project, which Kenyans have gone there and unearthed. You know what was said? And I want you to look for that speech on Madaraka Day. What he said about certain houses within a coastal region and how far they have gone in terms of construction. And how Kenyans have, I don't even want to mention those Kenyans, how they've gone there and taken videos and photos and said, this is what your president was speaking about. This is where it is and this is how it looks like. So you look at the speech and you look at the ground, those are two different things. And that's what Kenyans are telling you. If you mention something, as long as it is within our borders, Kenyans will go and check. And then they'll come and tell you, ulisema hivi siku ya speech yako, na hapa ndio tuko, na tumechukua video na tumechukua kamera. Hata mkitaka tuweke pin location ni hapa. It is not happening. So we are tired of, you don't try to defend what is undefendable. Leave it. In fact, you would rather just pretend it was not mentioned and talk about other things.
Now, Fanya, Mambo doesn't like context.
Let me tell you, I listened to the president say what he said about HELB. I would have said exactly the same thing. Myself and President William Ruto got the same loans around that time.
5380.
Yes, we were given that loan automatically when you get to the university. And we paid it. And we paid it to the same office that is HELB today. I went there because I wanted to run for a seat in 2013. I had not finished paying it by my other salaries. So I walked in there with the rest of the money and paid it. And it became HELB thereafter. Just like anti-corruption. There's a time it was EACC, there's a time it was something else. Just like Electoral Commission. It has only changed names, but it has been doing the same thing. And we were given loans. President William Ruto joined the university in 87, I joined in 88. We got that loan and we paid it. And that is what the president is saying. It was just the context. It's just the names that have changed.
You used to call it boom.
No. Boom was a stipend that you were given.
Boom was a grant.
Those days, the economy was doing very well. I don't know whether it was the economy or the universities were few. So they could afford to give us a loan and also pay us for being at the university. And even those days, you would be in the university and before you finish your last exam, you already have an appointment letter. Those things have since changed. But let's go back to about the president lying. So that place, I can tell you, the president...
And the African currency.
...did not lie. Let me tell you, Uhuru told us twice that, by June, all pending bills will have been paid. He paid 2 years consecutively. One, he said when he was in Narok. And he was ordering that by June, all pending, they were never paid. Nobody ever called him a liar. Nobody. So this idea of calling him a liar has been orchestrated, planned, organized, and paid for, and consultants brought, so that he's being paid as a, the ordinary folk in this country are not logical. They are emotional. And they will not understand your logic. They will listen to what you say again and again and start singing it to their children, singing it to everybody else, even when they don't know the source.
So who is paying who to call President Ruto a liar?
Of course, every president has opponents. People who think he doesn't deserve that seat, he should get away. But I want to tell Kenyans, this country belongs to all of us, and it is time we learned how to share it equally and equitably, resources, appointments, and opportunities equally. But let me also tell you something. Morara Kebaso has been going around the country, showing us projects some were started during the Kibaki days, and telling us these are the projects that have come out in this regime. When he went to Kisii about the Equitable South Water Project, it's a project, we walked in there with President William Ruto and we found it had begun in 2018. And it had not moved. Some of the projects that he says the president are relaunching and they are removing the plagues, he was actually relaunching them because they failed in the past regime. And nobody wants to talk about the past regime because it is one of their own. Let us share resources of this country. In fact, since the new constitution 2010, only one community has been seen the presidency. They couldn't face an idea of another one also coming in. They would rather remain there. Let's have this country shared politically, socially, economically, equitably among all Kenyans. I would like people to say, when the media goes reporting that, oh, this has been done like this, Morara Kebasa has gone and exposed and is going around. Yet those projects were Uhuru projects, and they failed during Uhuru. And nobody ever called Uhuru a liar. Calling somebody a liar is a choice. But it is not a fact.
Is it not erroneous to refer to them as President Kenyatta's projects or President Ruto's projects? Are they not just Kenyan projects?
If we had been intelligent, not intelligent, that would mean somebody is not intelligent. If we have been good enough, we would have looked at those are government projects. These were begun during Kibaki. These are now during Uhuru. President William Ruto is now coming in to relaunch them and have them completed. The president is not the minister of everything, but he oversees them. So once he's gone to Bobasi there, relaunched the road there, left it in the hands of Rural Roads Authority, he expects it to be done. And he recently appointed somebody to be moving around, ensuring those things are done, and ensuring that they sign a contract that this will be done. The only problem is the money may be late or the money may not be enough, because we are also fighting the very source of money that we are supposed to use to launch this project. They don't talk about that. They don't talk about the finance bill that Ruto expected to use to complete these projects, but they want to talk about the projects incomplete. Yeah. Let us be fair.
No, just a minute. Let Fanya Mambo come in, and Fanya Mambo, please address two issues. No, I know it's a burning thing, but I think you need to have some coffee.
Too much airtime to Fanya Mambo. You're leaving me out.
No, I'm not leaving you out.
And I would like to ride on.
Okay,
on
go
his
ahead.
point.
Go ahead, please.
Now, I just want to respond to add on to what Owidi has said, especially with regard to government and the continuation of government. You know, government exists in perpetuity, meaning when
in business they say it's a going concern.
It's continuous. Government continues. It's a continuum. There is no break in government. What breaks is the administration, but the government agenda remains the same. That's why we have Vision 2030. It continues regardless of who runs the administration. Let me circle back and talk about the states and the perception that the likes of my good friend Fanya Mambo here, the misconception that they have about the states, thinking that Trump will come in and undo everything that Biden has done, unravel the relationship that America has with Kenya. That's not true. Governments exist in perpetuity. Trump is an administration, just like Biden is an administration. He will come in and continue. Some policies will change, not all policies. Relationships, particularly with countries such as ours, will continue. Nothing will change. Now, which brings me to what Owidi is saying. Owidi is talking about projects that were started during Kenyatta's time, and that are continuing during Ruto's time. It's high time we began to see these projects as government projects, not as Ruto's project, not as Kenyatta's project. The money does not come from Kenyatta's pocket. The money does not come from Ruto's personal pocket. It's government money. It's our money. These are our projects. So we should own them. These are taxpayers' projects. So we should own them and run with them instead of trying to sabotage these projects. How are we trying to sabotage? Look at the disruption that Ruto has had from the moment he took over. 2020, last year, that is 2023, we had Mandamano. Very disruptive. In fact, Mandamano, he said, cost Nairobi alone 2 billion shillings every day. There was disruption. And we had that disruption for months on end. Disruptions of those sort, first of all, what they do, they scare away investors, potential investors. Second, they affect our ability to collect taxes. It's a fact. This year, we had another costly disruption, the Gen Z rebellion. I don't even call it a revolution. It's a rebellion. That's what it was. We had the Gen Z rebellion. Cost us very heavily, yeah? And the finance bill, upon which a lot of this development was predicated on, was abandoned. Now we are revisiting, yeah? We are revisiting the same finance bill because we cannot do without it. Yeah, so what I'm trying to tell Fanya Mambo and his friends is that they should give the president time to live up to his promises. He makes promises, but he needs time, he needs finances to execute those promises. He needs time to deliver. If you keep on fomenting insurrections, rebellions, and pseudo-revolutions, the president cannot deliver. Then he will come across as a liar.
Now, Fanya, there are two issues alongside to what Khafafa has indicated. Number one, President Kenyatta, when he took office, he made so many promises. Say he probably kept 50% of them. Does that make him a liar? During the last campaigns, we are rarely informed that you associated with Raila Odinga. He made a number of promises. He probably did not keep any. Does that make him a liar? And finally, when you're talking about taxpayer resources, when you travel across the nation, you'll find taxpayers' projects, or rather projects funded by taxpayers, but these politicians have got their faces on all those billboards. A small road in the village, the governor has got his big poster. A small road in the village, the local MP, a small road in the village. Is there a legislative framework that we can invoke to stop them from using taxpayers' resources and then putting their faces on it? Sometimes the cost of launching these projects is much higher than the project cost.
Thank you. I think first and foremost, you're looking at an administration whose only repose is blame game. They started by saying they found empty coffers. And that's the thing they rode on for a very long time. And then when that couldn't be bought by Kenyans because we could start seeing them buying very expensive vehicles and living very lavish lives and having very huge motorcades, Kenyans said, wait, this is how empty coffers look like. And then allocating State House 4 billion, then 8 billion, then I don't know how much. They were told, no, empty coffers don't look like that. So now they started blaming Uhuru for everything. Everything that was happening in Kenya Kwanza wrong, they were blaming him. Even the first Maandamano, they blamed him. And some people went there and ate his goats. And the police were nowhere to be seen, but they were seen everywhere protecting parliament. But when it comes to Uhuru's property, I mean, goats could be taken for 12 hours without police presence there. So they blamed Uhuru for a long time. And I'm happy he left the country because now they can't blame him when he's outside the country. I think they were looking. So the next thing they did is what? Let's look for another scapegoat. Oh, we are failing because of Rigiji. Oh, Rigiji is saying we are lying. Oh, Rigiji is the problem. Now Rigiji has left government. What do they want to do? They still can't deliver. Oh, it is the finance bill. Because we don't have money, we don't have finance bill. Now they are going to ride on finance bill for some time until they get another scapegoat. Once they get another, maybe they'll say, Fanya Mambo ndio kanapiganga kelele kwa TV, kanaharibu watu akili, ako kamutu ni kabaya, tangu Fanya Mambo kakuje. So they blame everything, including, and sometimes they even wish locusts can come so that they can blame locusts for what is happening.
For food insecurity.
Yes. And then, once they are done blaming, the 5 years will be over. I have not seen this regime take responsibility for anything.
Is it a blame game or they offer a reason?
It's a blame game because right now, there was something called NHIF. To change that N and make it S, we spent 104 billion just to remove the N and make it an S. From NHIF to SHIF, we spent 104 billion.
Is that a statement of facts?
It's not.
It is. They said they are changing the system.
It's not a statement of
Have you ever heard of a system that cost 104 billion? Because the only thing for us Kenyans, what we see has changed, is that logo, S, and then it was an N. And that is why we are telling you, this S that has cost us 104 billion, that money is enough. That is what Ketraco was being given, 97 billion. That's what Ketraco needed from Adani. So literally we should have taken that money and given to Ketraco instead of getting Adani's 97 billion. All I'm trying to tell you...
Obviously, you know that is a populist statement when you say that a change of logos cost billions.
Let me ask you. We were told, and you know that 104 billion was spent to procure a new system to run our health system.
Not true.
What do you mean it's not true?
It's not true.
Where is the money?
It was never spent.
Why are hospitals not being paid until now?
104 billion shillings. Fanya Mambo, by the way, you should practice some truth once in a while. There are so many statements that you should live up to your mentor, truthful man. You know.
No, he's not my mentor.
No,
by
he
the
is.
way.
I mean,
you
hold brief for him. I mean, because he is.
Deputy. Let me tell you,
he is the one.
Clear that.
Yeah?
I have to clear that. First and foremost, I have always made it clear. I never wanted Ruto. I never wanted Rigiji. I have never wanted them in anywhere near governance. In fact, anywhere in public limelight. But Kenyans voted for them and they became president and deputy president. When they started fighting, what did we do? Sisi tulijiam, tunawapatia glucose, energy, walimane wamalizane because we didn't want either of them. When Rigiji found himself in court and we felt that his human rights had been abused, that's the only time we came in as lawyers because of his human rights as a person. When you start impeaching somebody at 11 and printing a gazette notice at midnight, an hour later, and for Kenyans it doesn't come out that quickly, we felt that they were trying to defeat justice. So we came and said, I don't like you, Rigiji. In fact, I have never wanted to vote for you, and I had never wanted you to be deputy president. In fact, if anything, you got us to this mess. Ulishonea nguo wa mama huko Mount Kenya za yellow, wakavaa, wakaimba, yote yawezekana. But the fact that somebody is stepping on your human rights as a person means we forget first that we don't like you. And we put up a strong legal defense for you. Because even you, tomorrow, even him, like now he's on the other side. Tukisikia Kenya kwanza inamharakisha. We shall all move to court and support him. So let it be clear, I don't hold brief for him. I don't support him, but his human rights will not be infringed upon when we are here.
Let me deconstruct Fanya Mambo's statements, first of all. I mean, one by one. One, that statement of empty coffers, in as much as it came from Rigiji, it's factual. It's a factual statement. How? Debt to GDP ratio. I like figures. What was the debt to GDP ratio at the time Kenya Kwanza was taking? I think it was close to 70%. What is the ideal? 68, close to 70%. What is the ideal? The ideal ought to have been 60% of GDP. That's the ideal. That's the World Bank recommended debt to GDP ratio for a country that is developing, such as ours. That's a fact. That's a fact.
France, Germany, US.
I can even give you, yes.
Japan is 201.
Okay, let me. Okay, thanks. I mean, you've come up right up to my alley.
Yes.
Let's talk about Japan. Debt to GDP ratio in Japan is 201. What currency does Japan borrow in? It borrows domestically in its own currency, the yen. What is the interest rate that Japan gives to the domestic borrower? It is negative. It's never even positive. What's the net effect? It means every time the Japanese government goes into the market to borrow, it pays back less than it borrowed. Is that the situation in Kenya? When we go into the domestic market, or even when you go into the overseas market, don't bring us things like, Japan's debt to GDP ratio is more than Kenya's, when you don't have a proper understanding of how economics works. That's not how economics works. That is why the World Bank and IMF and others make recommendations and say, for a country like Kenya, your threshold is 60%. If you move beyond 60%, you're in danger of debt distress. And your master, Uhuru Kenyatta, it is a fact. He took us up to 68%. He brought us close to debt distress. When Kenya Council were taking over, that is the position that they found themselves in. Empty coffers. Why do we talk about empty coffers? Do you know how much was spent to repay, how much of tax revenue was spent to repay, to service debt in September?
Yes.
Almost 100% of tax revenue was spent in repaying debt. That means there were empty coffers. In fact, that's the situation that obtained last year in April. You remember last year in April, when we did not even have enough money to pay civil servants. What happened?
We had $1 billion.
What happened? No. What happened? Why didn't we have enough? Why didn't we? You know, Kinuthia, you're talking of peanuts in relation, yeah? We are talking of $1 trillion.
Can you give the numbers so that Mura back in the village can
you're talking of $1 trillion. Yeah, it's like talking about a hawker who is struggling to get 1,000 bob, and you're talking about a guy who earns 100,000 shillings. And then you're comparing them and saying, this girl spending 100,000 shillings is misusing his money because he spent 10,000 shillings on a shoe, and there's a hawker here who has only 1,000 bob. put things in context. Let me put them in context. Last year in April, tax revenues, what we had collected as tax, more than 90% went towards debt service. This is how government operates. It collects money through taxes. Government does not have other sources of revenue. It's taxation. When it collects money through taxes, it puts them in the consolidated fund. Now, by law, the first charge on the consolidated fund is towards debt service. That's the first charge. That law presupposes that a government has been prudent and that the debt will be at most 30 or 35% of the tax revenue that is collected. But under Uhuru's ruinous administration, we saw everything being put into the consolidated fund being wiped out by debt service, to the point we had no money to pay civil service last year in April. That is what we mean by empty coffers. It's not an empty statement. It's a statement of fact. Now, let me address the SHIF and NHIF. First of all, we know that NHIF has been the cash cow of connected people, particularly in the last administration.
What do you mean by connected?
Hospitals, when you look at the health environment in this country, you have the private sector, where you have the private hospitals, then you have the public sector, which is government hospitals. You find that Kenyans, for the most part, the greater proportion of Kenyans are treated in public hospitals. Yet, it is the biggest beneficiaries of drawings from NHIF are private hospitals. Refunds are private hospitals.
Having the approximate percentages?
I don't have, but I think they're just a Google search away. Yeah, I don't have the figures, but what I'm telling you is a statement of fact, and you can counter-check after this. NHIF pays more to private hospitals than it does to public hospitals. Yet, public hospitals treat more people than private hospitals. So it's disproportionate. And the only logical explanation is that there has been bleeding that has been done to NHIF, which is why SHIF has come. In fact, it's not just SHIF. It's actually the Social Health Authorities, an authority that has been formed for a number of reasons. One of the reasons is health has become a devolved function. You have 47 counties, and each of those counties now has health schemes, left, right, and center. And each of them is giving disproportionate health services. Yeah, you get Nairobi possibly giving the best health services. Then you get one on the border, maybe in Busia or Samia, giving health services that are not commensurate to those ones of Nairobi. So what happens? You have a social health authority to come and regulate, to create standards. Now, under that social health authority, then you have the social health insurance fund, which is basically what the NHIF was. Then you have two other agencies. Two other agencies that also come alongside the SHIF have to do with the palliative care, because NHIF is limited. It could only treat, it could only give you preventive medicine. Preventive medication.
Palliative care?
Palliative care is when you have a chronic illness, say like cancer, and that needs long-term treatment, possibly up to your deathbed. NHIF will not have covered that, but under SHIF, that's a coverage that is possible. Then under SHIF again, contributors were not covered. And under NHIF, sorry, if you are not a contributor, you are not covered. You are only covered because when you are a contributor. But under SHIF, there's a provision now for those who don't have an income to still benefit from SHIF.
But we've seen in the media the last couple of days, and this for you, Owidi,
yeah.
last couple of days, every single day in the news bulletin, people are actually going to these facilities, and a good number has received medical attention, but others are yawning and crying.
I have explained it here before, that every new thing always have teething issues. Even today, if you move from your current house into a new one, tomorrow morning you look for your toothbrush for 30 minutes. It is possible. You most likely, so many things will, even your school fees for your daughter will remain unpaid a little longer because you have to get things in place. And what he has said about the misuse of NHIF, there was a hospital in this country that had 3 surgeries every day. and paid by NHIF. And it did not have a theater. So these are the things. President William Ruto's mistake was coming to correct things that were wrong. You know, sometimes many times I blame the media. When Rigiji was
Mambo.
impeached, they used to complain that we are leaving priorities as chief, we are leaving priorities in internships, and we are dealing with the impeaching. But when there was Maandamano here 2023, nobody was talking about we are leaving more important thing to Andamana. They were cheering. In fact, the media used to commentate on the Maandamanos like it was a sport, like it was a football match, Chelsea versus Arsenal.
Live commentary.
Yes, live commentary in the streets, in time ahead of the players. So these are some of the things that make me sometimes complain. But you have heard me here many times say, Kenya is for us all. Other communities must also share. But I am very happy.
Actually, what do you mean?
I'm very happy with the younger leaders from the Kikuyu community. The Chungwas, the Kangatas, they have demonstrated that in this country, we can share. We can support William Ruto even though it doesn't come from our clan. In fact, what the Mount Kenya did in the last general election was the best thing that could be done, that could take us to the next level of living together as a nation. But nevertheless, this empty coffers thing, every new president since Kenyatta died has always come to say, empty coffers, empty coffers. It is not a lie, because you see, when you sit outside that seat of the presidency, you think things are okay. But then you give promises. Then when you actually take the mantle, then you discover things are different. So it is not a lie, but it is what we correct.
So does it mean that we have a problem that every time we have a transition, is it some sort of a cyclic cycle that you love empty coffers every...
No, from outside the fence, the grass on the other side look green. From the benches, the field looks like, So even President William Ruto, he was not where Uhuru was sitting. So he assumed things are okay, we'll do. But now, one thing I like about him, he has taken the initiative to make things which were wrong.
What do you mean that he did?
I had Fanya Mambo.
No, what do you mean that he didn't know what was happening and he was the deputy president?
What does the deputy, what is the role of a deputy president in a country like Kenya? In fact, you would rather be a CS than be a deputy president because you have no role unless it is assigned to you by the president. You only hope that if you become president yourself, things will be different. So just leave it that. But this idea of scapegoating, I have seen people blame President William Ruto for scapegoat again and again. There's nothing like a scapegoat. When you bring false accusations, you will definitely get a response you don't like. And that response you don't like is what you call scapegoating. Just the same way, when you are a criminal and you don't want to be arrested, and you are arrested by force, you go calling it abduction. Like in this country, there's nothing like abduction. People who are criminals are arrested by force. If you choose to call it abduction, so be it, but it is an arrest.
Fanya Mambo,
so
Owidi said that
stop me, I stop there, or you want to let me finish?
No, because I think you are taking...
let me, okay. So about I heard Mambo saying that Rigiji was not given his rights. Let me tell you something. Mischief begets mischief. What Rigiji was trying to do on the day he was supposed to be cross-examined was mischief. But nobody has stopped him from continuing with his court cases to the very end, and he will be compensated if there was anything wrong done to him. But you see now, it was just mischief. He has stopped. He has even applied to the courts to withdraw the cases. So it was just mischief.
So Fanya Mambo, you lined up lawyers to take care of mischief.
You see the problem with listening to Owidi. You might end up thinking that every other person is insane in this country. And the only sane person is President William Ruto. That's the picture that Owidi
So next time you want us to have is this a psychologist or a psychiatrist in the room?
That's the picture
to establish insanity levels.
Yeah, but the deputy president, and I wish he was listening to our courts the other day, when they quoted Article 147.
That is Owidi or the impeached deputy president.
Yes, Article 134 and Article 147. They said the reason that Kenya should not be without a deputy president is that unlike in the 2010, in their previous constitution, when we had a vice president, the deputy president of the Republic of Kenya has got specific functions and roles he performs conferred to him by the constitution. So it is not true that he has to wait for what the president is going to assign him. Now, number two, you are here saying that shida yetu ilikuwa maandamano. It was affecting this country. The only thing that Kenya Kwanza has never wanted to have a conversation about is why we have that maandamano. These people will come and bring a bill that has to make Pampers expensive. A bill that wants to bring something stupid called motor vehicle circulation tax. A bill that was even planning and proposing to tax bread and so many other things. We read that finance bill, we know it. And it was going to make cancer treatment very expensive in this country. And when Kenyans say no, his administration thinks that all the millions of Kenyans are mad. Only the president is right. Some of the names he's mentioning here are not even mentionable in their own constituencies. Kimani Ichung'wah is one person who right now has a problem going back home. He's not able. You saw the other day he tried a public participation and what happened to him in his own home. What use would it be for me to be the president's friend and I can't go to see my mother in my home? The other one alichomewa kuku and our pastor sijui walitoka wapi. This Molo MP. And when the pastors went there, they went to sing dirges for the chicken that were burnt. They didn't even care about how many Gen Zs had lost lives. What we are trying to say is that if this administration is looking for where the problem is, go and look at the mirror. And that's exactly where the problem is. Make sure you're in a Kaunda suit and then look at the mirror and then you will see where the problem is. Most of the things that Kenyans are doing are reacting. Kenyans have not woken up like insane people and gone to the streets and says, we just hate this administration. No. You bring us a horrible finance bill, we react. You have a problem with us reacting. You bring us Adani, we react. You have a problem. In fact, Adani has proven to us that we actually don't need Kenya Kwanza administration. If the reason we are bringing them is so that they can go and get an Indian to run our airport, then we should just be doing this as Kenyans. We tell companies to float and then we vote for which company will run our parastatus. I mean, if this is the way to go about loss-making parastatus, by the way, let me tell you, the first and the biggest loss-making institution to which we give money and get no value is State House. That thing should be privatized and given to Adani to run because we are putting 8 billion, then another 4 billion, then we are building a dais, and then we are buying furniture, and there's no value we are getting from State House. If really we are looking at places where Kenyans spend money and get no value, that is one place. Another place we spend money and almost get zero value is Parliament. That's another place we can give to a private developer or investor to just be putting their money there because there's no value coming back to Kenyans from. So don't just look at it and say it's an arm of government, it has to be there. If it's a value issue, if there are places we've put in money and gotten no value, one of them is State House. Huko tu ni chakula inakuliwa huko tu. Sijui unasikia kuna confectionery, kuna sauce chef. You go there, you find a person who gives you a personal relationship with food. You start gaining weight like some people I don't want to mention here. And that's why I'm saying we have to get to a place where literally...
Mambo, wait a minute. Are you speaking as a lawyer? As a populist?
No,
or
and
as
now I'm
a political
speaking,
candidate for 27?
No, I'm speaking. I'm speaking as a Kenyan who is looking at value for money. Period. If the reason we are privatizing the airport is because we are not getting value for money, let us privatize State House because we are not getting value for money. There is no billions we've put in there that we've seen value come out of. Let us privatize even Parliament. I mean, if it's about value for money. But if it's about what is conveniently can be given away to other people, then let's do it. But if you ask me, if I was sitting here and I was doing maths, I would ask, where do Kenyans put money and get zero value from? The first place is the house on the hill. And that one now, then let's have that conversation. So if it is wrong to privatize State House, that's what I'm coming to. Then it is wrong to privatize everything else that is not making a profit. Reason is, Kenya has got prudent business people. People who are given banks when they're in receivership and they turn them around. Why didn't we give them KICC to run? But some of the names that are floated for people who are appointed by this administration to run places are people who cannot turn around a primary school. And that's why we have this problem. If Kenya Pipeline Company is not making money, don't privatize Kenya Pipeline Company. Ask, who is the best brain that can convert Kenya Pipeline Company and bring it to profitability. We had one guy who used to run the KWS, Julius, and I'm not campaigning for him. Hata sijui alienda happy. I think alikuwa anaitwa Julius Kipngetich. And everywhere he went, he turned things around. Sometimes he had a short stint at Equity Bank. He still made a difference. And you see his Kaleo, because people keep saying that I'm saying Kalenjin's up. That guy was good. Bring him, give him Ketraco, give him those loss-making institutions. I am telling you, if we did a list of those people who've turned around companies that were dying. Right now, Ndego is doing very well with Safaricom. Nimeona wako na that 7 billion. So you steal him. Take him, give him the airport to run, uone kama ita make loss. We don't need these Adani fellas and all these other funny people.
Mambo, I suspect, or rather I feel that you've engaged in actually a combination of many things.
Yes.
Misinformation, disinformation, propaganda.
I'll even start by responding to one of the companies that is mentioned. Kenya Pipeline Corporation, under the CEO, Josang, turned around and made a surplus of 12 billion shillings. 12 billion shillings. That was during Uhuru's second term. Then, because of toxic politics, Josang and other senior managers were pushed out of KPC. And a politically connected type took over KPC. What happened? That surplus of 12 billion whittled down to 1.5 billion, what they surrendered to the exchequer. Josang has now come back to Kenya Pipeline, where he rightfully belongs, after dubious cases against him were had to conclusion, and he was acquitted by our courts of law. Kenya Pipeline is now giving the exchequer,
Khafafa, before you
giving the exchequer good profits.
No, before you go to your second point, a valid question is, why would a company which operates largely as a monopoly make losses?
Now, that's the $1 million question that Fanya Mambo can give us answers to, because these are his people. These are the people that he's rooting for. I mean, he's a Kenyatta man. You've talked about Kenyatta in glowing terms here earlier. So you're a Kenyatta man, you've decried the stealing of his ship and everything. So you are best placed to give us answers. But
the farm mean that is a Kenyatta man?
No.
Just that his goats were stolen, full stop. Doesn't make
let me move on.
Even if your goats are stolen, itakutetea.
Let me move on now to address the substance of what he said. And I'll agree with him that the first thing that we ought to do as Kenyans is to identify the problem. You know, we don't talk about the problem enough. But the problem is not the administration. The problem with Kenya is debt, public debt, period. We have taken on more debt than we can possibly handle, and we are very, very, very perilously close to debt distress. That is the problem. When Kenya Kwanza took over, that was the problem. In fact, I write articles, and I write. Yes, but it's within it. No, they've borrowed. I mean, every government borrows. Even the American government borrows. Do you know of any government that does not borrow? Do you know any government that does not borrow? It does. It does. Botswana still does. It borrows. There's actually, even from the local market, there's actually no government that does not borrow on this earth. Borrowing is not a crime. Borrowing is not a sin. Responsible borrowing is the thing. That's the difference.
You don't tell us you're in debt distress and then you go and borrow more.
Under Uhuru's administration, we borrowed recklessly, and we used it for what I call vanity projects. Projects like SGR that are running currently. Even if you run that SGR with the maximum number of combinations and permutations of cargo and passenger trains, day and night, you still won't break even. In fact, if you stop SGR now, if you stop it operating, in one calendar month, you save 1 billion shillings. One calendar month, because we get 1 billion shillings from 2 billion shillings from SGR, and it costs us we get 1 billion shillings in revenue from SGR, and it costs us 2 billion shillings to run SGR. Those are vanity projects. Per month. Mm-hmm. Those are vanity projects that I'm talking about that Uhuru engaged in. So when Kenya Kwanza took over, it found the problem. Debt. Public debt. Public debt to GDP, as I was saying, was at 68% as opposed to 60%. One of the remedies is to work with Bretton Woods institutions to pay down that debt and to begin to depend on on-source revenue. What is on-source revenue? It's taxation. So that's why we have that's why we had the finance bill of 2023, and that's why we've had the finance bill of 2024. If you look at that finance bill, now I want to address the problem of debt, because Kinuthia keeps on talking about borrowing as though it's an evil thing. If you look at the last year's finance bill, the budget, I think the 3 trillion budget had a deficit of about 900 billion shillings. That's what we borrowed. I think we borrowed about 500 domestically, 400 we borrowed externally to bridge that budget deficit. The Finance Bill 2024 had proposed to bring down that borrowing to about 500 billion shillings to bring down the deficit. And the plan was that going into 2027 would keep bringing down the deficit to the point that at 2026 or 2027, we have a balanced budget, meaning we don't have to borrow externally to finance the budget. That was the plan. But what happened? There were disruptions last year, and there have been disruptions this year. So that has sort of taken the Kenya Kwanza government administration off track a little bit. Just a little bit.
Khafafa, time is the enemy in this conversation.
Yeah.
So as we prepare our final points, let's start with Fanya Mambo. The candidate used to support Mr. Raila Odinga at his Addis Ababa launch for Africa Union chairmanship. What did you make of the launch?
Well, they made a launch that was good. Every other person makes a launch, but it's a moribund launch. I mean, I have always had profound respect for the person of Raila Odinga, but I don't think Kenya is winning this thing.
Why not?
My heart is in support of it. I mean, sometimes you just, if you're an ardent reader of international news, and if you're looking at how, even Ethiopia itself, where he was launching, you can tell, even from the body language and everything, they are not with us. Eritrea is not with us. The bulk of the countries that are French-speaking are not with us. So I support Raila Odinga because he's the man wearing the Kenyan T-shirt in a race that is between Kenya and the rest of Africa. However, let's just be prepared for the fact that it's not going to happen. What we need to start preparing for, if you ask me, is getting an IBC very quickly, because there's a referendum coming next year, and to start preparing ourselves for local politics. But I can tell you, if you're not aware, your administration is going to give us a referendum next year. I am putting it to you. I told people they are going to... I told them the other time that they are going to impeach Gachagua, they said it's not possible. I am telling you, your administration right now, wako kitchen wanapika referendum ya next year. And one of those things is the Constitution of Kenya, mutilation, not amendment, mutilation bill 2024. Na watajaribu kusneak in 7 years. Na itaanguka.
They invited 48 permanent representatives in Addis Ababa. 37 showed up. The balance offered their apologies.
Yes.
They invited Africa Union development partners, 100% turnout. Then PCS Musalia Mudavadi and Raila Odinga and PS Sing'oei addressed the audience. Very lively conversations, and everybody was looking forward to Mr. Raila Odinga's position.
In 1 second, I'll answer. You know, I've campaigned in Nairobi. Campaigns are the only things when you call people, put them in a place because you want to talk to them, a hall. When you talk to them, they expect you to give them fare and food, actually. And then they listen to you. And then you pay them for eating, literally, because those people, by the time they are leaving, they look at you like, why are you not giving us money and you called us here for a campaign meeting? You literally pay people for eating. I have not seen people who've been called for a campaign thing who said no.
So you're comparing a campaign meeting in Nairobi with Africa Union?
When you investigate, ask yourself, at whose cost were those people there? Do you think it was their own cost? The answer is no. When someone is paying your air ticket, you will go and you will listen to them. And that's when you discover kura kwa fulani lakini kula place tofauti. So there's something going on. And I can tell you right now, Abu call people in a town hall meeting and tell them to come. They will come, even 3,000 of them, as long as they know you're paying fare and you're paying them to eat, because by then you pay them for eating and then you pay for the food that they eat. and then they go back home.
And those who start, you give them
On the
standing allowance.
Yes, on the voting day, ndio utajua ujui.
Now, Owidi, I know you've had a turbulent history with Mr. Raila Odinga, but I'm hoping that you'll give a fair analysis of his AUC candidature.
Before I even do that, you want me to talk of a new thing, and there are some very serious allegations that are made that I've not talked about. About Kimani Ichung'wah being unable to go to his home. There was a time Tuju could not even go to Siaya. Not that he was a bad man, but because there are people who think they can be kingpins. Like this one of Ichung'wah is already gone. In fact, people will dance for him in Murang'a more than they're going to dance for Rigiji. That take it to the bank. So one time that was he also talked about that somebody in Molo, his things were destroyed. Do you know, out of the 8 MPs ambao walisalimiwa wakati wa Gen Z revolution, 8 of them were Kikuyus. That tells you somebody wanted to be a Kikuyu kingpin. And any Kikuyu who defied him, it happened to us in Luonya, and that's why I know it. Anybody who defied him in that place was. There are many people who defied those Gen Zs who were non-Kikuyus, and they were not touched, apart from Sudi. So we know these things, the way the game is played. Now people... I normally keep very quiet. There are people who loot parastatols do not want to hear about Adani. Leave it that way. But when you tell me that we should give State House to be run by so and so because we are not getting return parliament, of course, they are not commercial things. So leave it at that. We don't need to talk about it. They are not commercial. They are delivering from where I sit. When you give a Kenyan to privately run, say, the airport, you will never heard of tribal accusations. You will never hear. There is nobody, private Kenyan, you will give the airport run without Kenyans even going to the street to protest. So we are better off sorted by that international company. But there is something people normally say about the Ketraco contract that I cannot go unchallenged. They even tell us that before, the Ketraco had done a budget of 64 billion. Now it was done at 96 billion, isn't it? And they are complaining. First of all, if they had that money of their 64, they would do it at 64, there's no problem. But when you are borrowing, don't we expect interest? And you know how many years? 30 years. If you borrow 20 million today, after 30 years, how much will it be? More than double. So people refuse to think logically. Even besides that, this is a business. This is a business company. If I was going to do my work at 20 million, if I give it to somebody to do it at my cost, he will load his profit. But to do it at his cost, he will load both profit and interest. So these people talking are not telling Kenyans the absolute truth about some of these things. So now, about
abandoned logic.
Yes, abandoned logic. About this thing of Safaricom, the guy is doing well. Did he find Safaricom doing bad? It was doing... No, it didn't improve it. It's only that, you see, as inflation continues, the profits look bigger. But in terms of real value, they are just the same as it was before.
Actually, in the case, the latest numbers, they recorded a decline.
Yes.
So by telling us inflation has gone down. Now he's telling us
No, you see, there's long term and short term. When the guy took over was long term. But inflation after Uhuru, that is short term. So let's not mix issues. Then... You told us that there was no government to deal with the Kenyatta goods when they were being stolen. At the height of that man, honestly, that you cheered on, who would even think about goods? Nobody would think about it. But you see, State House was...
Wait a minute, Owidi. The responsibility of the government is to protect lives and property.
Yes. But you see, Kenya can be at war until they forget about protecting you in the village. They concentrate on external aggression. The maandamano in 2023 was too big to think about Uhuru's goats. Definitely not. Especially when in my head I believed he was part of that maandamano. But you see...
he can sue you for that statement.
Sometimes we accuse...
he can sue you for suggesting that it was part of the maandamano.
Sometimes when I hear people accuse President William Ruto, I wonder where they have been living. President Uhuru did 5 park projects within a radius of 5 kilometers within 1 year. Uhuru Gardens, Jamhuri Showground Stadium, the one in the military barracks there, the Uhuru Park here. You see, Iko hapo ndani. And you know they were being done by who? By the military, so that nobody talks about them. They were being done by the military. So nobody is editing them, nobody is auditing them. Nobody, and he did them, and nobody talked about corruption. That stadium in Jamhuri has never been used even once, Tangu Jengwe, except by Bishop Owuor Akiomba. So let us be fair to President William Ruto. The Jamhuri things, Jamhuri Showground, there's a stadium there.
But Owidi,
a beautiful one for that matter.
Owidi, you obviously know that the Kenyan military is highly regarded. Are you casting aspersions on their integrity?
If you want to misuse them, you can. That is why they were taking one from there, bringing him to NMS here, and using him now to do the so-called that park. Is there? Are there even Matatus there? Whatever is happening there is not worth the money being used there.
But Sakaja ameshindwa na Nairobi. You just leave the general.
It's okay. You can blame Sakaja, but it's Uhuru who did it. Sakaja just came to now use it. So let us be fair. As we blame Ruto, let's blame the other people. If we find the mistakes we are blaming Ruto for is similar to the ones that were done by other people, so that Kenyans don't see Ruto as the bad man and the others were good. No. He was not a bad man.
Okay, Khafafa, please address the issue. You know, Fanya spoke about Adani, and I know he understands that the reason why you have the PPPs is to inject private capital to the economy. Yeah. But because he knows his audience, he wants to make Mura believe in a certain way.
Adani, the reason why Adani has come in is because Kenya Airports Authority, from its own source revenues, is unable to finance the expansion of the airport. The airport needs to be expanded. In fact, we are 10 years overdue in terms of airport expansion. We should have done this in 2013, but Uhuru, for reasons known to himself, cancelled the contract that had already been awarded to developers. So we need a runway, we need a new terminal building, because the one that we currently have is very, very constrained. It was built initially to handle 2 million passengers. It has been stretched and patched over time to handle 7.8 million passengers. Now, we are taking more than 8 million passengers per annum. When I'm talking of passengers, I'm talking of per annum. We are taking more than 8 million passengers per annum. When you come through JKIA during peak period, it's a nightmare. The baggage carousels don't work properly. You have to queue to go through immigration. You have to go through to queue for customs. You take a flight from Johannesburg to Nairobi, takes you 4 hours. Then you take another 3 to 4 hours just to exit JKIA. That is unacceptable. It's a put-off to tourists. It's a put-off to visitors coming into the country. So we need to expand that airport, and we need to do it urgently. So like I've mentioned, Kenya Airports Authority earns about 18 billion shillings in terms of revenues, but it expends about 17 billion shillings. And what we need now is about 200 to 250 billion shillings.
Where do they spend this 17 billion with leaking roofs?
Of course, you know, they have to maintain the airport, the infrastructure. They also have to maintain all the other airports in the country, even those that don't make a profit. And we are talking of all those small aerodromes like the one at Nyeribo. We are talking of the Kisumu Airport, the Eldoret Airport, the Mombasa Airport, the Homa Bay Airport, the land airstrip at Eldoret, the airstrip at Kitale, Kakamega. All the airports that are public have to be maintained by revenues that come from
So you maintain all those facilities,
yes,
and then you compromise the biggest international airport.
It's not
so that when tourists, when people jet in, when it's raining, it's a leaking roof. There are no bathroom facilities.
When you talk of compromise, those renovations that were done under the Kenyatta administration. They were not done under this administration.
Mambo spoke about scapegoating.
Yes, so they were done. No, but it's a fact. It's a fact. It's a statement of fact. You can't change that. You can't change that. So we need KAN needs money. It needs about 260 billion shillings to develop. As you can see, it's only it's spending a lot of its own source revenue to manage other things. So it needs to, ideally, the ideal situation is for them to go to the government, for the government to give guarantees so they can borrow against their balance sheet to fund this expansion.
Okay.
But when that happens, if they go to the government, it becomes, if the government gives them a guarantee, that guarantee is reflected in the government as a loan. It goes into the loan books of the government. And right now, as a government, Kenya doesn't have headroom to borrow because of the debt that we have. So it has been agreed that the way forward is the PPP way. For a lot of these big ticket infrastructure projects the government is supposed to undertake. So inviting Adani is part of the PPP agenda.
Okay, so thanks,
Yes.
Khafafa. Yeah. Because we only have 3 minutes. Let's start with Fanya Mambo. There is this gentleman whose name is, I don't know how to pronounce these Chinese names, but his first name is Li. Is a ranking member of the Chinese Communist Party Politburo. Is among the 7. I mean, he's actually ranking number 7 in the Chinese Communist Party. So he was in Kenya last week, and he made a visit to UDA, and then there was a conversation around joining BRICS. Maybe you could use the first minute to react to what Khafafa was saying, and the other minute on the import of his visit to UDA.
Thank you very much. I think first and foremost, Kenya Kwanza creates a problem, and then they make that problem your problem. After they came into power, anybody who's traveled around will tell you, airports don't behave the way we do. You saw even Alfred Mutua saying ati wanachukua underwear tourists wanafanya hivi. Why did they start doing the kind of searches they were doing at KRA for people? You create a deliberate delay because you are so thirsty for money. I am telling you, people used to land here and wish they could go back. You remember the first year after they came into, there's these summer bunnies who usually come. And this was the first time they were being treated to that kind of madness. That there's a government that is so hell-bent on collecting so much money that they delay you for 3 hours, trying to check your bags to see what you've carried and what you've come with, and trying to count ata umebeba perfumes ngapi and how much duty you need to pay for them. And then they start wondering why the airport is becoming congested and why there is no efficiency. Their greed has created the inefficiency. We had a time when you would go through the same airport within a record 40-45 minutes. We've all been traveling through that airport. But since these people came, mimi sijui njaa ya pesa inatoshana kiasi gani. You have seen, I even remember Alfred Mutua himself complaining and saying now we are scaring tourists because we've got such appetite for other people's things. Mpaka mtu hawezi beba simu mbili. So that's a problem they created first. They needed to have thought, if really you want to collect money, first invest in a system that will help you go and sort out that problem for people within 15 minutes. But you don't come and create an inordinate delay in people and checking their bags and removing things. But they were opening those bags in such a horrible way. And then you start complaining that the airport cannot handle. It is not handling your appetite, not the number of clients that we have. Number 2, you will not join BRICS and work very well with Trump. And this is why they always get it wrong. You need to choose your hard. Yeah? You cannot come and you want to go to bed with China and then immediately tell the Americans you can also come on this other side of the bed. Si Chinese ako pande mi niko katikati. It's not going to work. It will not work. It will not work. So you choose your bedmate and choose your bedmate right. And that's why I'm saying it's not going to work the way they want. I mean, niliona kabendera ka UDA kamewekwa pande wheelbarrow ya China nao kakitu karedu kwa kona tu vitu vingine tunakaa tu spoon. And those symbols also almost resemble each other. But it's not going to work. You choose your bedmate wisely. That's the only thing I'm going to tell Kenya Kwanza. But you will not sleep on a bed and tell the Chinese, well, lala pandei, na America lala pandei.
Even if it's a 7x7.
Ata ikikuwa 14x24.
Leonard, Fanya has indicated that you cannot be talking to BRICS while President-elect Trump is around.
Okay, first of all, a quick one, I rejoined to him. Paying duty is a civic responsibility. You cannot come with 10 perfumes that you're coming to sell here, or 15 mobile phones that you're coming to sell for profit.
What if the perfumes you've been using?
There's a limit. The law allows you. The law allows you. The law allows you. The law allows you. There's a limit, and it is specified. If you go to Jomo Kenyatta or any other place, or when you're landing, they will tell you that these are the items that are allowed duty-free. And they give you a value. They give you, no. It's a rule that has been there from before. $500 limit. Beyond $500, you have to pay duty. And it's standard across the world. There's no country in the world that actively encourages you to be a smuggler, to deal in bootleg.
For Mura, how much is $500?
Well, $500 by about 130, we are talking of about close to 80, 90,000 shillings, which is reasonable. It's very reasonable.
That's one iPhone.
Yes. So you're allowed to come with one iPhone. If you're coming with 3 or 4, then you must be a trader and you should pay duty for those. And you should not complain. It's your patriotic duty to pay duty. Yes. Yeah, but if you brought them in through Jomo Kenyatta, all 3 of them, you should have paid duty for them. If the value of your collective, the collective value was more than $500, if you did not pay duty, you're a smuggler. Okay, talking about...
He's a law-abiding citizen and a lawyer.
I hope. Anyway, I know him, so I know he's a law-abiding citizen. Yeah. Talking about the Chinese... Lee. And
he's a ranking member of the Politburo.
And the alleged desire to join BRICS. I've looked at all these official websites. I've gone to mainstream media and I've searched it. And I've not found anywhere where it has been indicated that the president intended to join BRICS or had discussions to the effect that he wants to join BRICS or asked the Chinese to lobby for him to join BRICS. So again, I'll put that to a creation of the detractors of this government because they know that there's a push, we are caught in between Western interests and the interests of the Orient. And they'll want us to clash with one or the other to the detriment of the government. There's no such thing. No, it's not official.
No, but assuming that it doesn't even exist, one of the US's key partners in the Middle East, Egypt, is part of BRICS now.
Yeah, I mean, that's Egypt. I mean, they're allowed to. I mean, we are Kenya.
So what stops Kenya from joining BRICS?
We've always been unaligned. And for us, we look at... our development partners, and we have relationships with each of our development partners. We've had diplomatic relationships with China now for 60 years. We've had a lot of cooperation, and we will continue to cooperate with them along the lines of those diplomatic relationships.
Khafafa,
we also have diplomatic relationships.
You made a statement which may be seen to be alarming. Are you suggesting that maybe having a partnership, say, with Bretton Woods and BRICS, they're mutually exclusive? You can't have a relationship with all.
You cannot. You've seen the way BRICS has moved to campaign against the US currency. They have this thing called de-dollarization, amongst other things, They want to create their own currency, elevate it to compete with the US dollar. So you can't be said to be working for American interests if you are fairly and squarely in BRICS.
So Egypt, which is a key ally of the US, they're in BRICS. Are they working against US interests? Our neighbor up the road, Ethiopia, are they working against Americans' interests?
Well, time will tell. Time will tell how America treats them. For us, under the Trump administration, we had certain favorable concessions. For instance, AGOA is not indefinite. African Growth Opportunities Act, which allows us to take things to the US. It's not an indefinite provision. You know that under the Trump administration, Kenya had been singled out as the first country on the continent to engage with the US in terms of bilateral relationships, in terms of trade concessions, for export and import. For trade between the US and Kenya.
But you recall,
and that was meant to be a pilot for the rest of the continent, depending on the success of it. So we relate to the US differently from the way Egypt, say, and other countries relate to the US.
Okay.
Our relationship is different.
Owidi, finally.
First of all, let's look at this airport thing. The officials who do some of those things Mambo talked about are not doing them based on some memo or some policy direction that the government gave. They're just using the unwritten policy they have been using since Kibaki era. So I don't think we need to say, oh, Kenya Kwanza. I think we are attributing too many things to the government for nothing. Now, on the issue of China, the political party that was here, I think we need to distinguish very clearly the distinction between the government of the Republic of Kenya and the ruling party, UDA. Not even Kenya Kwanza, UDA. It was UDA led by the Secretary General and the Chair, who are not the president, who are in this kind of relationship and learning process, benchmarking with the Chinese Communist Party.
Actually, also they made another statement that they want to learn a few things from NRM. From NRM.
Of Uganda. If there's something to learn, let me tell you, sometimes I listen to people who are wrong so that it can inspire new thinking in me. So we can listen to anyone. Even people who give wrong answer, in fact, read and see what were they thinking in that wrong answer of theirs. It can help you get an even more brilliant answer. So let's work. If we find there are many things that you can only get the best from China, and even the US know. When you are dying here for masks, face masks, we got them from China, including the United States got them from China. So that is where they are best.
Because of the supply chain dynamics.
If this mass political party running can be done, because maybe Kenyan politics is more emotional than the US one. So we go to China where probably it is also emotional. We have to look for somebody we can learn from, and let's learn and use it to better ours. Don't learn and use and adopt it and leave yours. This is what we are trying to do. So to try to say, when you invite the Chinese here on political issues, there are also things like, for example, Mambo airport, we have gone to India. We are in India. Mambo political party, we have gone to China. Mambo yetu ya political development and policy and economics, we have gone to the US. That is how we are. Security, we may go to the US because we are non-aligned. We are not going to say, like here in this country, when you don't like somebody, you don't touch anything about him. You're saying now because President William Ruto dilly-dally with Biden, now he can't even greet Trump. We are not going to go that route. We are a country of civilized people. We are a country of brilliant president. We have a country of good people. I know Fanya Mambo have a problem, even with the whole parliament. But the very people who elected this parliament are us. Parliament is a random sample of our society. If you see anybody in parliament who is a thief, no, our society is consisting of largely thieves. If you see parliament which have, that is what we are.
Fanya Mambo, please have 1 minute, because I've seen Khafafa and Owidi have given you a battering.
I think all I can say is UDA wherever you are, Kenya Kwanza wherever you are, you owe these people a very fat check. They have done a very difficult job of trying to convince Kenyans the inevitable.
Can you suggest how much that check would be? The value?
No, wapatiwe blank waende wakajiandikia amount. Na sasa juu nimewatetea
okupatie kitu.
Hapana, waniongezee 30 seconds. I spent my 30 seconds. But I don't know whether you've seen some two black memes that are going around.
You seem to have a very high appetite for those.
And the president has been depicted in many ways. I think what these two gentlemen on my left are failing to know, do you know there are seasons? Like if you go to a village and people are harvesting, they sing harvest songs. They never sing war songs. They just sing harvest songs. When you go to the Bukusu and it's circumcision time, people always sing circumcision songs. You'll never hear them singing, I don't know what. They sing circumcision songs. When you come to the country right now, and people have started singing Mau Mau songs, people have started singing South African liberation songs, and you can't stop, and you try, hata kuna ingine walienda stadium, a guy who never told you to celebrate his birthday, he never asked you to buy him a cake, and you fill a whole stadium and you do a birthday for him and you sing a lot of cultural songs. It's sending a message. When we were having an election, I saw people singing songs for Ruto. They even changed some gospel songs and saying, "Tugokira tene, tutaamka mapema tukapigie Ruto kura." They are not singing those songs now. Songs come from the heart. ask yourself, why are people singing the songs they're singing right now? Because sometimes you keep saying ati wameambiwa, they are being paid. Kama mtu analima shamba na analima shamba huko akisema, Ruto must go. Na analima shamba na ako peke yake na anakikaa bikiboeka hata akiitisha maji anasema nikimeza hii Ruto must go. These people need to ask themselves, why are Kenyans saying Ruto must go? The tide, the way it is, walisema that if, and I won't mention the creature, that creature vies, and President William Ruto votes vies, they are going to vote for that creature, whatever that creature is going to be. In fact, people are saying now I'm preparing myself for honorable creature, because they will vote for anything that is not William Ruto. So these people need to be prepared for that Kenyans are waking up to vote out William, which I believe is sad. If you ask me, it is wrong because sometimes we put in, kuna wakati tulitoka kutoa Kidero, tunaenda kutoa Kidero. But look at who we put there. Haki ni kutoa Kidero, na mwenye anaweza toa Kidero ni huyo. And they put him. And it was a very sad state of affairs because it was a guy who was known to box gates and to do a lot of drama on tarmac. This is what's going to happen to Kenya in 2027. I am telling you. Kenyans will wake up to vote out William Ruto, and they won't care who they will put in place, but they will vote him out.
Thanks, Fanya Mambo. I suspect Owidi, that statement will not go unchallenged.
Fanya Mambo has not lived as long as I have done. In 2002, the Luo's turnout for Kibaki was higher than the Kikuyu turnout for Kibaki.
Percentage-wise?
Percentage-wise. Oh, they voted for him to the last man. And even Orengo, their son, ran for the same seat and never got any votes. I don't know who was it Orengo?
24,000.
Whoever this.
I would have voted.
But the next election, the same way they voted for him is the same way they did not vote for him. And he still remained president for 10 years. So Rigiji can run away from President William Ruto. He can plan his downfall. But I can tell you, President William Ruto will be president for 10 years. Uhuru was president for 10 years. The next one will be president for 10 years. We are going to make Kenya great again.
So you are now embracing Trump politics?
No, we are going to make Kenya great. If we go with this idea of this is our man, so we must support him. This is not our man. In fact, you do it unknowingly, emotionally, without realizing, actually, I am going with this man because you're a man. Let's have a Kenya. We cannot. This is why I like this man called Ichung'wa. He really knows what to do and what not to do. Let's have a Kenya where every community can have a bite at the cherry. Look even at the unity of Mount Kenya. The unity of Mount Kenya must be such that at one point in time, it is East, at one point in time, they support somebody from the West. That is the unity that we expect also in the whole of Kenya.
Khafafa, thanks for creating time. Owidi, Fanya Mambo.
Waongeze zero kwa hiyo.
And you know time is money. Thanks for giving us your time this Sunday evening. See you next Sunday. Asante sana.
Thank you. We talk one more.